Welcome back to the deep dive.
Yeah.
Today we're stepping into what I can only really describe as the fog of war.
The digital fog of war.
Exactly. Not tanks and trenches. I'm talking about the digital space where your data actually lives.
Mm-hmm.
It just feels so chaotic, doesn't it?
It does. It feels like the rules are changing every single morning while you're trying to have your coffee.
Yes. And the tech moves at this breakneck speed.
Yeah.
New threats, new tools.
So many new buzzwords. But here's the interesting part. While all that chaos is real, the fundamental principles of how you actually defend yourself,
Yeah.
they haven't changed nearly as much as you'd think. They just get ignored a lot of the time.
Okay, so that's the disconnect we're tackling today.
Yeah.
We're not just looking for one shiny new tool that's going to save the day.
No, not at all.
We're trying to construct the ultimate cyber defense system.
Yeah.
We're taking a holistic look, combining the foundational critical controls from the SANS Institute.
Which is pretty much the Bible of cybersecurity.
Right. And we're mixing that with some really interesting adaptive tech concepts from Watchpost Security, and then trying to figure out how to handle the fact that everyone is working from their phones now.
The goal, really, is to shift the whole mindset. Most people defend by guessing. They guess what might happen. We want to move to a mindset where offense informs defense.
I love that phrase, offense informs defense. It sounds like something a football coach would have tattooed on his arm. But what does it actually mean when we're talking about, servers and firewalls?
It's the core philosophy of the SANS documents. It means you stop building walls just because you think they look nice.
Okay.
You build walls specifically where attackers are trying to break in right now. You use the knowledge of actual attacks, of real-world compromises, to prioritize what you fix.
You don't try to fix everything.
You can't. It's impossible. You fix what matters.
All right, so let's get into the blueprint. We've got a stack of sources here. The SANS, critical controls, these insights on configuration drift from Watchpost.
And that mobile data from SecureFrame and Zimperium.
It's a diverse stack, but it feels like it tells one cohesive story.
It does.
So where do we lay the first brick? If I'm building a fortress, do I start with the moat, the archers?
You start with a clipboard?
A clipboard?
Mm-hmm.
That sounds significantly less cool than a moat.
It's not cool, and that's exactly why so many organizations fail at it. The absolute bedrock, SANS Controls 1 and 2, is, well, it's inventory.
Inventory.
You cannot defend what you don't know exists.
Okay, but, playing devil's advocate here. Inventory, really. Is that a security measure or is that just bureaucratic paperwork? Does knowing I have a printer in the hallway actually stop a hacker?
It does, and here's why. The problem isn't usually the gear you know about, it's shadow IT.
Shadow IT. That sounds pretty ominous.
It is. It's the marketing department getting frustrated with IT, so they just use a corporate card to spin up their own cloud server. Or it's an intern plugging a little Raspberry Pi into the network to test some code. That device. It's not on your map. It's not getting patches. It's not behind your shield.
So it's a wide open back door that you don't even know is there.
Exactly. SANS notes that attackers are constantly scanning address spaces. They can find a new, unpatched system, sometimes within 24 hours of it hitting the network.
Wow.
So that marketing server goes live, and if it's not secured, it could be compromised before the invoice even clears.
So the fix isn't just knowing vaguely what you have.
Yeah.
It has to be aggressive.
It has to be active. Active scanning tools sweeping the network, passive scanning, listening to traffic. SANS calls out a quick win here, which is 802.1x authentication.
802.1x. Okay, can we translate that into English?
Sure. Think of it like a bouncer at a club.
Okay.
On a normal network, the little port on the wall is just an open door. You plug in, you're inside.
Yeah.
With 802.1x, the port itself is the bouncer. You plug in, and before it lets a single byte of data through, it asks for ID. Who are you? Are you on the list? If you aren't, the port just stays dead.
I like that, the bouncer approach.
Yeah.
Okay, so that handles hardware inventory of devices.
Well,
But Control 2 is inventory of software.
And this is even harder. You might have a totally secure laptop, but if a user clicks a bad link and installs some piece of software that opens a back door...
And then the hardware security doesn't matter.
Exactly. And this brings us to the dreaded concept of whitelisting.
It is dreaded, you're right. Users hate it.
They do.
Wait, yeah, it sounds like a nightmare. Whitelisting means I can only run programs that IT says I can run. So if I want to download a new tool for my job and it's not on the list, I'm just stuck.
You're stuck. And that friction is why companies hesitate. But from a security standpoint, SANS lists this as one of the first 5 quick wins for a reason. It stops a massive amount of automated attacks.
Just because the malware isn't on the list.
Precisely. If an attacker drops a script on your machine or a piece of ransomware, it's just a file. The computer looks at the whitelist, says, I don't see ransomware.x on the approved list, and just refuses to run it.
So it kills zero-day exploits dead.
Right in their tracks. Because by definition, they are unauthorized software.
So it's like locking the front door, but also making sure you're the only one who can actually turn the handle. It's basic hygiene, but it sounds like a heavy lift to implement.
It is a heavy lift, but that's always the trade-off, convenience or security. You usually can't have both at 100%.
Okay, so let's say we've done the hard work. We have our inventory. We know what we have. Now we face the next enemy. And according to the WatchPost security material, this enemy isn't a hacker in a hoodie. It's something called configuration drift.
This is a silent killer. WatchPost defines drift as the slow, silent erosion of your security posture.
I love the metaphor they use here, comparing a security policy to a map.
It's a perfect analogy. Imagine you have a paper map. You draw a route on it. That's your security policy.
We will drive this way to be safe.
Right. You set up your firewalls. You configure your servers. It's perfect. On day one.
But then reality happens.
Reality is the road conditions.
Yeah.
A developer needs to open a port to test an app, so they temporarily disable a firewall rule, and then they forget to turn it back on.
Or a new patch changes a default setting. Or a user just takes a shortcut.
Always. So if you're still navigating by that static map, that policy you wrote 3 years ago, you're going to drive right off a cliff.
And driving off a cliff in this world means getting breached.
Yep. So the solution, well, you can't just rewrite the policy every single day.
That seems impossible.
It is. This is where the tech has to get smarter. WatchPost and Symantec propose something called adaptive protection. Instead of a static map, think of it like a GPS that's updating in real time.
So it's monitoring the road conditions for you.
It uses AI and machine learning to act as a kind of self-repairing mechanism. It's looking at indicators of compromised IOCs and historical anomalies. If it sees a behavior that looks risky,
It adapts on the fly.
it adapts the policy on the fly.
Can you give me a concrete example of that? What does adapting look like?
Sure. Let's say you have an application that normally only talks to your internal database. Suddenly, it tries to send data to an IP address in a country you've never done business with.
Right.
A static policy might miss that if the port is open. Adaptive protection says, whoa, that is not normal behavior for this app, and it blocks it automatically. It doesn't wait for a human admin to wake up and check a log.
That connects to that shielded lighthouse visual they mentioned. The lighthouse beam, the vigilance. It isn't just spinning blindly, it's focusing on the storm.
That's the layered intelligence motto they talk about. You need the inventory, but you also need the system to be smart enough to handle the drift.
Which leads us to the next layer. We've got the inventory, we're managing the drift. Now we have to harden the system itself. This brings us back to SANS controls 3, 4, and 5. Hardening always sounds like we're pouring concrete.
In a way, we are. Control 3 is secure configurations. And this is a huge pain point because of how vendors ship their products.
Plug and play.
Plug and play is usually plug and pray for security. When you buy a server or a laptop, the default settings are designed for ease of use.
You turn it on and it just works.
They want it to work instantly. That means open ports, default passwords like admin, guest accounts enabled.
So we're fighting against the manufacturer's desire to make things easy.
We are. The fix is using standardized, hardened images. You wipe the factory settings, and you install a version of the OS that is locked down tight from the start.
And then you have to keep checking it. That's Control 4 Continuous Vulnerability Assessment. Now, I saw a stat in the Sans Us notes here that made me do a double take. They talk about remediation within 48 hours for critical flaws.
48 hours.
That seems impossibly fast for a big company. I mean, I've worked at places where it takes 48 hours just to schedule a meeting to talk about the problem.
It is incredibly aggressive. But remember, offense informs defense. Attackers automate their scans. If a vulnerability is published today, they are scanning for it tonight.
They don't care about your meeting schedule.
Yeah, not at all. If you wait a week to patch, you are leaving the window open while the burglars are walking down the street checking handles.
So the speed is non-negotiable.
If you want to be secure, yeah.
And if they do get past the patch, that's Control 5. Malware defenses. But we're not just talking about, Norton antivirus here, are we?
No, standard antivirus is largely dead. It just looks for known bad files. Modern attacks are way smarter. WatchPost lists some advanced tools that go beyond that. They mention sonar.
Sonar. like submarine warfare.
It's similar. It detects process behavior. So it's not looking for a specific file name. It's looking for a program acting suspiciously.
Why is the calculator app trying to inject code into the web browser?
Exactly. That's not what a calculator does. It's behavior, not identity. They also list memory exploitation policy.
What's that?
This is critical for stopping things like buffer overflows. It sandboxes applications. If an app tries to write data to a part of memory it shouldn't be touching, which is how so many hacks start, this policy just blocks it. It stops the exploit before it can even run code.
Okay, so we've locked down the servers, the laptops, the software. But here is where the fortress walls get a little blurry.
Right.
Because work doesn't happen in the castle anymore. It happens at the coffee shop, on the train.
Yeah.
It happens on our phones.
The mobile frontier. This is where most security strategies just completely fall apart.
We have some data here from SecureFrame and Zimperium. Listen to this. 60% of endpoints accessing enterprise assets are mobile.
That is the majority. Think about that. Most of the devices touching your company data aren't the hardened laptops we just spent all this time talking about. They're iPhones and Androids.
And yet 73% of organizations with mobile compromises call them major breaches. So we're ignoring the biggest door, and when it gets kicked open, it hurts the most.
We have to talk about MDM, mobile device management.
Okay, I have to stop you there.
Yeah.
Because when I hear MDM, I hear Big Brother. I hear my company spying on my texts and deleting my vacation photos if I quit. Is that what we're talking about?
That's the fear, and that's why employees fight it. But that view is really outdated. Modern MDM is all about containerization.
Containerization, like shipping containers.
In a digital sense, yeah. Look at the approach SecureFrame discusses. You put the work data, the email, the Slack, the documents into an encrypted container on the phone. The MDM controls the container.
Not the whole phone.
It doesn't control the whole phone.
So they can wipe the container, but not my camera roll.
Exactly. If you lose your phone or if you leave the company, they send a command that just vaporizes the work apps and the work data. Your personal photos, your texts with your spouse, completely untouched.
That seems like a crucial distinction to make if you want people to actually agree to install this stuff.
It is. But you still need the security baseline. You have to enforce encryption. You have to enforce passcodes. Because a phone running an old version of Android with no passcode is just a thumb drive full of secrets waiting to be lost in a taxi.
And speaking of secrets, we have to talk about the people holding them, the human element. SANS controls 9, 12, and 15.
The glitchiest part of any system.
Control 12 shocked me a bit. Controlled use of administrative privileges. SANS basically says, stop letting people be admins on their own machines.
This is a first 5 quick win, but it gets the most pushback.
Well, yeah. If I'm a developer or even a power user and you tell me I can't install my own software, I'm going to riot. I can't do my job if I have to ask IT for permission to install a font.
That's the convenience argument again. But here's the reality. If you are logged in as an administrator, meaning you have full power over the computer, and you click a malicious link, the malware also has full power over the computer.
It inherits my crown.
It does. It can install rootkits. It can disable the antivirus. It can wipe the logs. But if you're a standard user, the malware just hits a wall. It can't install itself deep in the system.
So that's the compromise, because people still need to work.
The compromise is separate accounts. You have your daily driver account for email, web browsing, writing reports. That account has no power. Then you have a separate admin account. When you need to install that font, you type in the admin password.
Okay. You elevate your privilege for 5 minutes, do the task, and then you drop back down.
So you're not browsing as root. You're not reading your email with the keys to the kingdom in your pocket.
Exactly. Just limits the blast radius if you make a mistake.
And that leads right into Control 15. Need to know. Just because I'm on the network doesn't mean I should see everything.
Data classification. Marketing doesn't need the source code. HR doesn't need the customer database. You use things like VLANs, virtual local area networks, to chop the network up into segments.
It's like a submarine. You have bulkheads. If one compartment floods, the whole ship doesn't sink.
That's the goal. Prevent lateral movement. If an attacker cracks the receptionist's computer, they shouldn't be able to just pivot straight to the CEO's laptop. Which brings us to the final barrier, the perimeter. SANS controls 13 and 14.
Control 13 is boundary defense.
Now, you hear people say the perimeter is dead because of the cloud. Is that true?
Well, the hard shell soft center model is definitely dead. You can't just have a firewall and assume everything inside is safe.
Right.
But you still need a boundary. You still need to block known bad IP addresses. But here's the nuance Sanus emphasizes. You need to filter traffic going out, not just coming in.
Wait, why? Going out. If the bad guy's outside, why do I care what leaves?
Because if a computer inside your network gets infected, what's the very first thing it does?
It steals data.
Before that, it phones home. It reaches out to the attacker's command and control server to say, I'm in, what do I do next? So if you filter outbound traffic, if you block that call, you trap the infection. The malware sits there, shouting into the void, unable to get instructions or exfiltrate data.
You've turned a disaster into a manageable incident.
Precisely.
And how do we know any of this is happening? That's the final piece, isn't it? Control 14, audit logs.
Prevention is ideal, but detection is a must. Without logs, you are flying completely blind.
But isn't looking at logs incredibly boring? I mean, it's just lines and lines of text.
It is boring until you get hacked. Then it is the most exciting reading material on Earth. You need logs that answer who, what, where, and when. If an attack happens and you have no logs, you have no idea what they took. You don't know if they're still in there.
This connects back to WatchPost's Network Application Monitor, doesn't it?
It does. That tool blocks traffic from processes that aren't allow listed, but crucially, it creates a record. It tells you what trying to communicate. That log entry is the difference between a mystery, why is our internet slow, and a solved case. Oh, the finance server's trying to upload 50 gigabytes to an IP in North Korea.
That is a very different Tuesday morning.
Very different.
Okay, let's zoom out. We have covered a massive amount of ground here. We started with inventory, that unsexy but vital task of counting every device,
including the shadow IT servers. Then we talked about adaptive protection to stop the drift of our security map.
We hardened the systems with that insane 48-hour patching rule. We extended the fortress out to the mobile devices in our pockets using containerization.
And we dealt with the human element, stripping away those admin rights for daily use, and finally watching the perimeter both coming and going. It's a journey from the basement all the way to the roof.
Looking at all this, the WatchPost material has this motto, layered intelligence. It feels like that just sums it all up perfectly.
It really does. There's no silver bullet. I think that's the main takeaway for everyone listening. You cannot buy a box that makes you secure.
No.
It's about depth. You need the inventory, plus the configuration, plus the monitoring, plus the human awareness. If one layer fails, and it will, the next one catches it.
It's like Swiss cheese. Every slice has holes, but if you stack enough slices together,
you get a solid wall, a delicious solid wall.
Exactly. Before we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought to chew on. We talked about that map analogy earlier, the static map versus the reality of the road.
Right, and this raises a really important question for everyone listening. If your security policy is written on paper or, in a PDF that no one has opened since 2023, it is already obsolete.
It's a museum piece.
It is. We are in an age of AI-driven attacks. The storm is changing every minute.
So the question is, are you still navigating with a static map? Or does your lighthouse adjust its beam to the storm?
Because if you aren't adapting, you're drifting. And if you're drifting, it's only a matter of time before you hit the rocks.
On that slightly terrifying but necessary note, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into building your digital fortress. Go check your logs, update your inventory, and please, for the love of all that is holy, don't browse the web as an admin.
Stay secure, everyone.